Hello, I'm Elise Vance, the author of the channel Borrowed Lives, and I offer you fascinating stories. Like and subscribe to my channel.
I spent my final moment on Earth begging my sister to bury me with my research journals so I could finish reading my favorite Renaissance political history in the afterlife. Instead of a peaceful void, I regained consciousness suspended over a cold marble courtyard, wrapped tightly in the arms of the most ruthless warlord in the entire chronicle. Around us, a dozen royal guards screamed in horror, warning that he was about to snap my spine. I took one look at his broad shoulders, sculpted jawline, and blood-splattered silver armor and thought, honestly, there are worse ways to depart this mortal coil. Then Lord Vance Vane opened his eyes. They were obsidian, lifeless, and filled with a raw, blinding fury that made my soul reconsider the entire concept of fate. "Commander Vane, put Lady Clara down," a scholar shouted from the upper balcony, his voice trembling. "His madness is worsening. He will crush her." Wonderful. Excellent. I had asked the universe for a quiet retirement, not a dramatic death at the hands of a terrifyingly handsome warlord. My last memory in my past life was collapsing onto a stone bench in the university library at 3 a.m., clutching my leather-bound chronicle while the final chapter of a royal court conspiracy loaded in my mind. My chest had burned. My supervisor had been calling. The reader notes in the margin kept insisting that the tragic antagonist was far more compelling than the self-righteous crown prince. My final words had been, "Bury the book with me. I need to know how it ends." The universe heard me and chose violence. Now I was trapped in the grand courtyard of the obsidian citadel, pressed against the chest of a man trembling with agony. Vance Vane, the ultimate antagonist of the Northern Crown, the exiled general turned border warlord who was destined to be executed by the heroic Prince Julian near the story's climax. And I was now Lady Clara Sterling, not the historian Clara who lived on cheap tea and unpaid library dues, but the doomed noblewoman who had foolishly pursued Prince Julian, offended the innocent Lady Evelyn, accidentally stumbled into General Vane's private quarters, and was executed before Chapter 50. Chapter 50 was scheduled for tomorrow. My survival odds were walking a tightrope over a volcano. Vance's gauntlet fingers tightened around my waist. The veins along his neck pulsed with extreme pressure. Heavily armed guards formed a defensive perimeter, terrified to take a single step closer. Royal physicians hovered uselessly in the background with useless herbal kits. In the original chronicle, Vance suffered from an unknown neurological affliction that triggered violent, uncontrollable episodes. No healer could treat him. The court used his condition to brand him a monster and justify Julian dismantling his domain. He looked ready to tear me apart. So, I did the only logical thing. I grabbed his metallic collar, pulled him down, and pressed my lips against his. The entire courtyard went dead silent. Vance's entire frame went rigid. His breath hitched for a dangerous second, and then the violent tremor in his hands eased. The suffocating pressure radiating from him cracked. His grip loosened just enough for air to enter my lungs. I pulled back, my heart slamming against my ribs. Vance stared at me as if deciding whether I was a miracle cure or an annoying corpse. I smiled weakly. "Greetings, my lord. Before you execute me, please consider how difficult I am to replace." A physician behind us dropped a brass bowl. His vitals, they stabilized. Vance's gaze never left my face. "Who paid you to come here?" "Poor authorial choices, most likely." His dark eyes narrowed. I adjusted my grip on his armor because falling would destroy what little dignity I had left. A scout galloped through the main gate, dismounting in a hurry. "Lord Vane. Prince Julian's knights are at the outer perimeter. They claim Lady Clara poisoned Lady Evelyn's tea and demand her immediate surrender." My blood ran cold. Julian, the original male lead. Perfect posture, golden armor, terrible personality. He believed Clara was hopelessly obsessed with him. In the original text, Julian's knights dragged Clara away, and Vance never intervened because he viewed her as an irrelevance. I looked up at Vance. Medicine or corpse? Time to upgrade. I slid out of his arms, then immediately grabbed his velvet cape. "I can suppress your episodes permanently." He leaned down, eyes deadly quiet. You know about my condition? I know many things. For instance, whoever chose those window draperies has terrible taste. A tiny muscle twitched in his jaw. Good. Not dead yet. If you hand me to Julian, I die, I continued quickly. If you keep me, your brain stops trying to implode. I call that a healthy arrangement built on mutual survival and exceptional genetics. The physicians looked scandalized. Vance looked almost entertained, which was far more dangerous than his anger. Entertained Warlord signed execution orders with a smile. Give me one reason not to throw you into the dungeons, he murmured. Because I am walking medicine, have terrible self-preservation instincts, and a strong preference for breathing. Vance raised a single-gloved hand. His elite vanguard immediately formed a wall at the fortress gates. Inform Julian that Lady Clara is not leaving my sight. Outside, Julian's knights shouted threats. Vance's men didn't even bother raising their voices. Powerful armies are always quieter when ruining someone else's plans. Vance turned back to me. If you betray me, you die. Fair. Dramatic, but fair. And if you lied about curing me, you die on very expensive stonework. He studied me for a long moment. Escort her to the High Keep. And just like that, I survived Chapter 49. Barely. The next morning, Vance summoned me to the main hall. He sat at the head of a massive obsidian table, wearing dark riding gear and an unreadable expression. Explain, he demanded. I took a sip of sweetened wine. Which part? The part where your touch stops the agony. I would explain, but the concept of soul transference sounds absurd. I dislike deception. Then you will despise reincarnation. His posture straightened. Speak clearly. Simple version, I said, setting my glass down. I know secrets I shouldn't. Julian wants me silenced. Lady Evelyn is far from innocent. You have traitors in your inner council, and your headaches are not natural. Keep me alive, and I will prove my worth. Vance leaned back in his chair. 3 days. You have 3 days to prove your utility. 3 days was generous in Warlord terms. On day 1, I requested the latest regional trade ledgers, a list of upcoming estate auctions, and fresh honey pastries. The guards brought the ledgers. Vance brought the pastries himself, as if waiting to see if I would check for poison. I ate them without hesitation. Scanning the auction notices, I found it, the Blackwood estate sale. In the original history, Prince Julian would attend, purchase an antique wooden sea chest, discover a hidden compartment inside containing stolen Royal Navy schematics, and present them to the Admiral. That alliance would give Julian the fleet needed to conquer Vance's border territory later. Not today, storyline. I tapped the parchment. We are buying this sea chest tomorrow. Vance glanced at the document. It is an ordinary relic of little value. We aren't buying wood. We are buying Julian's future panic attack and my right to survive next week. His dark eyes fixed on me. You speak of treason with disturbing comfort. I survived a sudden death, I replied smoothly. Minor social awkwardness no longer scares me. That evening, Vance escorted me to the grand auction house in the capital. The nobility whispered furiously as I walked beside him. Lady Genevieve, Vance's family-approved prospective betrothed, nearly snapped her ivory fan in half. Julian stood near the front, flanked by Lady Evelyn, who wore angelic white silk. Julian's expression turned venomous. Clara. Still clinging to dangerous men because no honorable lord will have you. I smiled politely. Julian, still confusing arrogance with leadership. Evelyn touched his arm softly. Do not argue with her, my lord. She is clearly distraught. I glanced at her costume. Lady Evelyn, that innocent act is getting stale. You look like a walking funeral arrangement. Someone behind us muffled a laugh. Vance's hand rested lightly against the small of my back, a quiet reminder to the room that a lethal force was standing right behind me. The bidding began. When the sea chest appeared, Julian raised his paddle immediately. I raised mine. The price soared. Julian smirked across the room. Lord Vane, I heard your treasury was running thin. I leaned forward. Thin? Then imagine the embarrassment when you are outbid by a ruined house. Vance raised his paddle without even glancing at Julian. The room erupted in quiet murmuring. Julian's jaw tightened, but he couldn't match the bid. We won. In our private holding room, I pulled a thin hairpin from my hair and dismantled the chest's double bottom. Vance watched closely. You've cracked hidden locks before? No, but secrets love places where light rarely shines. A leather scroll slipped into my hand, the lost naval schematics. Vance's eyes darkened as he recognized the royal seal. What is that? Julian's path to the throne. It belongs to us now. Before we could leave the holding room, Lady Genevieve swept in with Evelyn right behind her. This is outrage, Vance. Genevieve snapped. You flaunt this dishonored woman after she attempted to poison Evelyn? To be fair, I interjected, raising a finger. I accidentally brought the wrong cup to the table. Incompetent crime, terrible execution. Genevieve sneered. You shameless parasite. I turned to Vance. Are you officially betrothed to her? No. Wonderful. I was worried I needed to draft a legal dispute. Genevieve reached for the scroll, but Evelyn stepped forward and knocked against the side table. The sea chest tumbled to the floor, its delicate wooden carvings splintering on the marble. Evelyn gasped loudly, placing a hand over her heart. Lady Clara, why would you break such a historical piece out of spite? The classic public frame job. Nostalgic. I looked at the broken wood, then tapped the leather scroll tucked safely inside my tunic sleeve. Oh dear, the decorative box broke. Should we hold a memorial service, or just send condolences to your brain cells? Vance's gaze fell to my sleeve. He understood instantly and remained silent. A brilliant accomplice. The next day, Julian brought legal summons to the Citadel, demanding my arrest for grand theft and treason. Vance listened for 3 cold minutes before cutting him off. Leave my hall, Vance said quietly. Julian's face twisted with rage. You will regret choosing a madwoman over the crown. Vance didn't flinch. I regret tedious conversations far more. After they departed, I handed the naval schematics to Vance. Deliver these to Admiral Marcus before Julian tries to claim them. Vance turned the scroll in his hands. Why give the ultimate leverage to me? Because if Julian gets the fleet, he destroys your realm. If you get it, I get to keep eating honey pastries. Everyone needs a hobby. 2 days later, Admiral Marcus pledged his full naval support to Vance's territory. Julian's first strategic pillar was shattered. Desperate, Evelyn organized a trap. She leaked an anonymous note claiming to have evidence clearing my name, inviting me to a private estate on the outskirts of the capital. I knew it was an ambush. But an ambush is just a cage waiting to be turned on its builder. Armed with a hidden dagger, a signal flare, and sheer spite, I went. Mercenaries locked me in an underground study. Lady Evelyn sends her regards, their leader sneered, drawing a blade. Let's see how brave you are without General Vane. I kept them talking, knocking over lanterns and dragging out time until the oak doors exploded inward. Vance entered like a storm incarnate. No dramatic speeches, just swift, terrifying violence. Within seconds, the mercenaries were disarmed on the floor. Vance stepped toward me, his dark eyes ablaze as he noticed the faint mark on my wrist where a guard had grabbed me. Nobody touches my cure, he whispered, his voice lethal. The trap backfired entirely. The mercenaries confessed under Vance's interjection, exposing the financial trail leading straight back to Evelyn's personal treasury. The climax arrived at the King's Midsummer Gala. Julian and Evelyn stood before the High Council, ready to present a forged manifesto claiming Vance was mentally unfit to rule and that I was a spy manipulating his court. Julian took the grand stage first, his posture heroic and his voice filled with righteous authority. Lord Vance Vane has allowed a traitorous woman to dictate regional security. Lady Clara Sterling has a documented history of madness, deceit, and crime. Evelyn stood beside him, wiping away tears for the gathered nobles. Vance leaned down toward me. Shall I silence them? No, I whispered with a grin. Free entertainment. Terrible acting, but excellent lighting. When Julian finished, I stepped forward and unrolled our evidence folders. The hall fell dead silent as the truth echoed through the grand room. The mercenary contract bearing Evelyn's personal seal, the financial receipts proving she paid to stage her own poisoning, and the records of Julian bribing court officials to suppress the naval schematics. Admiral Marcus stepped out from the crowd. Lady Clara returned the crown's lost schematics to the Navy days ago. Prince Julian offered only empty words. The court erupted. Evelyn's pristine innocent act shattered into pieces. She panicked and turned on Julian immediately. "You promised me Vance would fall. You said Clara was easy to destroy." Julian's face went pale. The great heroes of the court had just exposed each other in front of the entire kingdom. Within weeks, Julian lost his claim to the vanguard, his political alliances dissolved, and royal auditors opened investigations into his private funds. Evelyn was banished from the capital, her family forced to strip her of titles to avoid public disgrace. Lady Genevieve was exiled to a remote estate, dropped by the high society mothers who once praised her status. My former family attempts to claim my inheritance were thrown out of court, completely powerless. Vance's domain stabilized. His neurological affliction, turns out, was triggered by targeted neurological toxins introduced by court physicians, toxins my herbal preparations neutralized. One evening, I stood on the high stone balcony overlooking the citadel lights. Vance approached from behind, pulling a silver band set with a raw midnight gemstone from his coat. "Regrets?" he asked softly. "A few," I replied. "Mostly that I never finished reading that chronicle. You rewritten it entirely. I made heavy revisions. A much better ending." He held out the ring. "Stay. Not because you are my cure. Not because I am your shield. Stay because when the world tried to paint us as villains, you made me look forward to tomorrow." My survival brain ran out of sarcastic jokes. "Do I get negotiation rights?" "Unlimited," he murmured, sliding the ring onto my finger. I died asking to take a book into the next life. In the end, I didn't need it. I entered the story, claimed the antagonist, dismantled the hero, exposed the court, and wrote myself the ending no author could ever take away.